Today's episode of the Mind Sculptors podcast is brought to you by TCG Player, your source for all your trading card game needs. Please consider using our link in the description for your next purchase, as it helps support the continued refinement of our show. This episode is also made possible through the gracious support of our Patreon members. If you wish to join this esteemed group, simply visit patreon.com/The Mind Sculptors and become part of the SCULPTY family today. And of course, if you prefer a simpler gesture, we invite you to subscribe, leave a like and comment on YouTube, or leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as a most fitting offering to the ever-watchful algorithm Jesus.
Audience, welcome to the roast of Cal.
The roast of Cal.
Okay, Cal has been claiming that they have been hyping up Tybalt, the arcane trickster. I don't know what are Valky God of Lies.
Yeah,
for years. I need receipts. I need proof.
We have a full ass set review of me telling Cobble and Pongo, hey, this is probably like gonna be really good.
You motherfucker! Did you say my name? You said you've been talking about this card for years. I was not in the room during that set review. I was not.
I wasn't saying this as a like you wouldn't listen to me. I'm saying like just I've been like it's more of a like me just sitting there being like finally somebody else is like agreeing with this take that I have had.
All right, Mind Sculptors audience, timestamps. Cal, if Cal shouts out once Valky within the last 2 years, I will eat something egregious on stream. I don't know what it is, but I'll eat it.
I've absolutely said Valky was a good card and like TNK for sure.
I'm ready to consume.
Ready to consume. Oh my goodness.
All right, that was it.
That's it. That's cool. Yeah. Welcome everybody to the Mind Sculptors podcast, and I'm Cal.
I'm Ian.
And today on the show, we are going to be doing not a set review of Final Fantasy, but we're going to do like a little bit of a dive into the set and take a look at some of the cards that we are, a little bit excited about, cards that we think are going to be interesting, because the full set doesn't fucking spoil until the 30th of this month.
Mm-hmm.
And like it feels like a crime to not talk about this stuff right now. Because there's just like so many interesting cool cards coming out, and me just sitting here being like, all right, well, we still have, as of recording, like a week before it even finishes spoiling. So yeah, let's talk about some fucking Final Fantasy. This is not as my wife said, this is not the Final Fantasy review, but
it's which is great because that sets us up for the next episode being called the Final Fantasy.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy review. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on in this set. Like across the board, there's a lot of cool fringe stuff going on. There's a lot of cool not fringe stuff going on. What are you like? What are your thoughts of it like so far?
My thoughts of it so far are this is probably one of the best design sets in a really long time, as someone who's literally never played a Final Fantasy game.
Really?
Yeah. Well, no, that's not true, actually. I have just finished the first game because my friend convinced me, as the set was spoiled, to download the Pixel remaster version of the first 6 games. So I have beaten Final Fantasy 1 and 1 alone, and I've started the first couple hours of 2.
I feel like if you're going to play only one Final Fantasy game, I know everybody like says it, but like Final Fantasy 7 is like a really good one.
That's what I've been hearing. A lot of people also really love 9 and 10, though. Those are the ones I keep.
Yes, a lot of people love 9 and 10. Now, I am one of the very few people who adore Final Fantasy 13. That was, and part of that is the series came out like right when we were in high school, so they were like very formative games for me.
Yeah.
I have not revisited them since, but I have very fond memories of those games.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so Final Fantasy, it's not a series that I'm like super like huge on. I've never played a ton of them. I've played like bits and pieces of 7. I played Final Fantasy 13, like I said. But I said this on Blue Sky like a few weeks, or it might have been a week ago or something like that. There's like, through these spoilers, I am learning, all of my Final Fantasy knowledge comes from playing Kingdom Hearts.
Same. Yeah.
Like, the only reason I know any character that has been spoiled feels like it has been because of Kingdom Hearts.
Yep. Yeah, no, for exclusively. Like that's like, I played so much Kingdom Hearts 2. And so yeah, like specifically a lot of the character I now understand is named Squall, I guess. Has a whole ass different name. Sure. I knew him as Leon. Whatever. Cloud, Sephiroth, the boys.
Yeah. No, I think that it's cool that this is happening. I feel like Final Fantasy, as far as like the universes beyond, is like a good fit for Magic. Believe it, like, you know what I mean. I feel like it fits the vibe of Magic pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Final Fantasy does really feel like we have a general vibe, but it's also Calvin Ball rules. You know what I mean? And like that Final Fantasy also fits that vibe pretty hard, right? Like you're just like, yeah, me and the boys are gonna go beat this guy up, and then you're like, and I can summon a meteor, anyways.
Yeah. So let's dive in. I think like the first card, like I don't have like a list to talk about. I just have like the previews up right here.
I actually do want to talk about. We're gonna end up talking about too many of these cards. I actually do want to talk about this first one here, though, Sephiroth, the Boros one.
Really? Okay.
Yes. So I want to talk about it for 2 seconds, just because it's got a lot of text and a lot of it's not relevant. So I'm gonna power read this one. All right. So for 3 in a Boros, Genova Cells. When it attacks, you may put a cell counter on target creature until end of turn. Each modified creature you control with base power and toughness 7/5. Then you can pay 3 to sack a modified creature. Return this creature from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So why am I talking about Sephiroth? The fact is, you can make very cheap modified creatures drop on the battlefield for like sort of a clown town ease, right? Like basically, if you get a haste enabler for Sephiroth, you can basically start the first turns by being like, cool, like basically like affinity style. Like here's a 0/0 for 1 mana that comes in with a +1 counter, and like you can do that like 4 or 5 times for very cheap, and then that's like, I mean, it's like 50 power out of nowhere, right? Which is the weird part about this deck. So I do.
So what you're
think
saying is Sephiroth is an affinity commander.
I kind of think so. Yeah, like it feels like Sephiroth Affinity, like super cheap modified creatures that come down with something already on top of them. And then, like there's a lot of creatures that fit under that description, right? And then it's pretty easy to just go like, cool, Sephiroth with haste, beat down. And then like when Sephiroth goes to get blown up, maybe you have a sack outlet on the board, you sack it, you return it by sacking one of your small creatures, and then boom, you're ready to go, right? Down to beat down plan, right?
Right.
So it's actually like somewhat interesting for a deck that looks like it shouldn't even be considered.
Yeah, I was like not even thinking about it, but when you say it like that, that's actually yeah, that's interesting.
The math checks, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the math checks out. That's got the old brain working on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one that obviously I think we're going to talk about pretty extensively is like Vivi. I don't know how to say the last part of this, so I'm just going to skip it.
I'm assuming it's Ornitier, but just because it's usually a French spelling. But
yeah,
sure. I've also heard Ornitier, so
I'm just going to say Vivi. And this is a 0/3 wizard that costs a generic, a blue, and a red. And it has a 0 mana activated ability that says add X mana in any combination of blue and or red, where X is Vivi's power. Activate only during your turn and only once each turn. And then it also says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Vivi, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this is straightforwardly, obviously good, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know you are planning on doing like a full video on this, but like
Yes.
the Cliff's Notes version is this can get out of hand pretty quickly.
The Cliff Notes version is awooga. No, I think Vivi is exceptionally powerful. I've been telling people in my Discord that I have like a version that I've been goldfishing pretty consistent turn 3 wins on. And the crazy part about Vivi is that Vivi is flexible. I've heard of people doing basically like Vivi Ral variants, right? Where you're just trying to win on turn 2, turn 3 pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I have heard of Vivi variants in which you are playing mid range and then ending with Hullbreaker loops or Banishing Knack loops / Retraction Helix loops with Flood Collar or fill in the blank here. Some people are doing Isochron stuff, not that you really need to. The fact that it's a win condition with your Underworld Breach is like absolutely wild. Yeah, and then the obvious synergy here is that you put a Curiosity on Vivi, and then suddenly this mana battery that you have in the command zone that's also technically a clock on your opponents is also just like cantripping 17,000 times. We played Vivi on Scrybabies. I lent Tori my version of the deck, and at one point like our opponents had like 28 or something life remaining. And she starts this storm turn, and we were like, oh, so, and me with the 1 ring, I'm like, okay, I'm safe, but I'm pretty sure this turn does not end with these players being alive right now. Like, they're just going to get pinged down to death.
Oof. Yeah, I think that's really cool. My question is, do you think that there is like somebody got like an altar of Banishing Knack that, looks like that just has this on it?
Didn't know this game existed. This is
You
such
didn't
a
know,
bad.
you didn't know about Knack? Oh my gosh.
It says only 1,000 copies of this game have been sold. No, it's 1,000 ratings on PlayStation 4, to be clear. I don't know. I've never even heard of these games. I was also an Xbox kid, to be clear.
Oh, okay. Knack 2, baby. Like, come on. Knack 2 put it. It is so clear to me that you are on like a different side of the YouTube algorithm sometimes, because I'll like reference something and you're like, what? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Anything sports, anything, I guess, PlayStation, apparently. Yeah.
Video game donkey fans out there will know what I'm talking about.
Is this COD?
Is this Call of Duty? I think this is interesting from the stance of like, I think like one thing that I really like is I feel like over the last like year or so, we've been getting like a lot of really good support and commanders for just like the straightforward old school blue red storm like commanders. Because I think like in the past, the way those have looked have been like, man, why am I blanking on the name? The one that was like a commander, the one that has loyalty counters. Why am I blanking so hard on this? The blue-red one that has loyalty counters, the Storm Commander.
Experience counters?
Or experience counters, yeah.
Mizzix,
yeah.
Yes.
Because we had stuff like Mizzix, right, in the past.
Yep.
And, to some extent, like it had that like the like cost reduction piece of it. But I feel like with this, you get like actual ways to close out the game.
Oh yeah,
that feel very on brand for what these colors do when they're storming off.
Also, the drastic difference on this card of if it said instant and sorcery versus it saying non-creature.
Oh, for sure.
Insanely different, right? Like this card would be, I think, a lot more balanced if it said instant and sorcery. The fact that you can like play Vivi and then be like, cool, mana rock, trigger, pay to get a thing, flicker mana, like it's so ridiculous at times.
No, yeah, I think this is really cool. I almost wonder like if this will get played in the 99 of some decks too, Because I feel like in the
Depends on the
99,
deck.
it's not even that bad.
It's not
right?
bad. It's not. It like has to be there for a particular purpose, right? Like,
Yeah. The reason I was thinking immediately was I was just like in the 99 of like a deck like Joyra, I feel like it makes a lot of sense because it like feels two niches that
yeah.
deck kind of
It's
likes.
like almost a Bergie in some decks. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, and that's why I was thinking about Joyra like immediately because I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, Joyra cares about the like non-creature part of
Yeah.
it. It also benefits because it needs that like
Win
mana
condition.
generation piece of it as well to like
Yeah.
have a
I think
way to
there's
like
like
pay
some
those
old
things
Izzet
off.
decks that like had previously been on like Reservoir or something that like definitely
Mhm.
could switch over to Vivi, right? Because now it's like a Bergie effect that also is a win condition. And I think
Right.
that's where Vivi will see the most place in the 99, I'm guessing, is like a deck that needs an outlet for infinite mana and that also can then use it as a storm enabler, right?
Right.
That
Right.
benefits for that purpose.
Yeah.
And the crazy part
Something.
about DV too is that like I want to mention is like it doesn't even need to be a storm card because
Yeah.
like you can just passively build counters on VV and then like have it pay off in just like a big spell, right? Like there's nowhere it
Here
says
is an omniscience.
Sure, sure, right? Like yeah.
Here is one and enter the infinite for full retail. Yeah, no, I think this is an interesting card. Sephiroth Fabled Soldier. This is a 3/3 human avatar soldier. I don't think they had enough creature types on this.
This set's gonna be there's so many.
Yeah. Whenever Sephiroth, we literally went from like one card that had only one creature type that's usually like a sub creature type
Yeah.
to this that is just like, here are 9. But whenever Sephiroth enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw a card. Whenever another creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. If this is the 4th time this ability has resolved this turn, transform
Jesus
Sephiroth.
Christ.
This term. I'm just thinking about the Senate. That's really all it is. And then why can't I flip it? I want to
The
flip it.
flipping button right there, Cal. Oh my god.
Was it?
You're such a boomer. It's the little fucking
Oh my god, how did I miss that? I can't believe you just called me a boomer.
Hey, which button do I click to turn the card around?
Well, usually there's like a transform button. I feel like down here normally, but it's because there's one over here that says transform, and so I was assuming there would be one down here, and my brain, listen, fuck off. The backside of Sephiroth when you transform it is Sephiroth, one-winged angel, has flying, and says at the beginning, or as this creature transforms into Sephiroth, you get an emblem with whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Whenever Sephiroth attacks, you may sacrifice any number of other creatures. If you do, draw that many cards.
It is okay. So like, I don't know that Mono Black Aristocrats like officially makes it into cEDH with this commander, but if there is ever a time if Black Aristocrats would make it into cEDH, it is with this commander. The fact that it turns over and so like let's talk about this one at a time, right? So the emblem, right?
Yeah.
The emblem is, as of right now, a completely uninteractable permanent type in Magic the Gathering, right? There is nothing that can deal with it. There's nothing that can remove it, which also means if Sephiroth happens to die and then you play Sephiroth again and then flip over and then get another emblem, that's just there forever. There's nothing that can stop that, right? So,
and I doubt that this deck though would ever want to do that. Like, I don't think that that's very like this deck seems like it just wants the one supernova, and then it's like we're good, right?
Yeah, of course. So if you can flip back over to the other side, Cal. So
How
like
do
a
I do
blood
that?
artist effect in the
I can't believe I did that. I could have cut all the stuff of me being an idiot,
no,
but I couldn't let it die. I know.
Yeah. So the fact that it has this like enter or attack card draw ability, right?
I like that it has that like the giant templating is kind of how I describe it, because that's how those are all templated.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of Titan text in this format, and we're going to talk about one later that I got to play against and I completely underestimated, and it I thought it was already good, but then it's even better. But with that template,
Did it fuck you sideways?
A little bit. But those effects, those cards that like Innocent Blood or like Meticulous Executioner that like come in and then everybody's got to sack a creature, that triggers and flips Sephiroth immediately, right? That's the crazy part. Those creatures come in, or those Innocent Blood effects, right? If everyone sacks a creature, suddenly Sephiroth flips with one spell, right? Which is like pretty absolutely nuts. And the fact that like he's an outlet if you do any of like the Warren Soul Trader combos, so like Forsaken Miner or the Gravecrawler combos, right? Like all of those. So it's like actually pretty easy to, with a relatively low mana efficient way, assemble a pile in which you can just like Sephiroth plus 2 other cards makes infinite deaths, which makes infinite, pings.
Right.
There's also like Bowmasters and Nim Death Mantle and an Ashnod's Altar, right? So there's a lot of like these layered infinite death combos that you can get in mono black, and those all can pretty efficiently, as far as mana value is concerned, fit into an Adnaz shell too, which is like pretty nice, right?
Well, that's the thing, like a Warren Soul Trader and Gravecrawler combos, right? I mean, that's like 4 mana. That's nothing. And then it doesn't, the one thing that will always hold you back with the like Soul Trader stuff, right, in most decks is that like you're paying life into it. So you have like a high cap on what you're able to do, and that's just not an issue with this as your commander.
Yeah, that, and like all of these creatures now that you normally want to like play and sacrifice super early in the game for like bonus, right? Things like Greedy Freebooter, which like lets you scry and leave a treasure behind, and like cards like that, right? Now all of these effects that you can like sack to a Culling the Weak, for example, are also proccing Sephiroth and draining your opponents while also advancing your game plan, right? So like there's actually a lot of synergy here that I think makes it potentially way better than it would initially look. I think I wrote it off very quickly as being like mono black's kind of unplayable in this format, but with the outlet in the zone, I think it makes it like way more considerable,
Yeah, no, I mean, like I think that this does a lot of stuff that like black kind of wants to be doing anyhow, right? And I think that's part of what makes this more appealing. And I think like if I were to look at this as like more appealing than like, Crick kind of does its own thing, but I think like it really feels like it sits in a similar place as like something like a Yawgmoth deck, right? But like almost feels like it's a bit faster than what that deck would be doing.
Yes.
And I think that's like a big advantage. And you realistically can still play Yawgmoth in the 99 of this deck, and it would probably slap, right? Like, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. So I think this is a really interesting card.
Yogg combos for sure. Plus, it's very easy to flip him at that point too. Right?
Yeah. Well, you flip him, and then you can just like draw like a bunch of cards off of. Like, and like it's. I have talked about that. I think Yawgmoth might be one of the most underplayed cards in the format because it is such a good value piece. It just doesn't like straightforwardly fit into a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one of the player who ended Swiss in first at Fishbowl was playing Tev Thras with Yawgmoth and would just like immediately destroy board states by just like having the Tevesh plus Yawgmoth combo.
Yeah, I mean that just those two cards together is going to. I mean, you'll draw more cards off of that than you will just off of Tevesh, right? And you get more board advantage. Like hell yeah, that is. God, it's so cool to see like Tev Thras players getting creative.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Next card let's look at is Traveling Chocobo.
Chocobo!
This card is pretty good.
Yeah.
This is a bird that is a 3/2 that costs 2 generic and a green. It says you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play land spells and cast. You may play land spells. Jesus fucking Christ. You may play lands and cast bird spells from the top of your library. If a land or bird you control entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Pretty big stonks, I gotta say.
I think the thing with this card that I think a lot of people tend to brain glaze over is they go like, oh, whatever, birds. But that's like actually not even close to what this commander is capable of. I think the real big thing here is like any land deck in cEDH immediately gets one of the best upgrades it's ever received, right? Like my brain immediately goes to like Tachiova, right?
Yeah.
Like just every land double
draws.
draw triggers, pretty good, pretty not bad, you know? Like every
I mean,
landfall trigger forever is
and
just better.
even
Plus,
like even
yeah.
outside of that though, like in a deck like Derevi, like this is such a
Yeah.
good, like this does for Derevi what I feel like what is the white card that like doubles triggers for like Timna stuff. Why am I blanking on names today?
Delny?
Yeah, like it feels very much like a Delny for like a Derevi type deck, you know what I mean? And how like you get those double triggers.
I'd argue the best Delny for Derevi is Delny.
I said Derevi like effect or Delny like effect, didn't I?
I know. I'm making a joke. So Chocobo's like slightly worse for Derevi. The fact that it like allows you to play lands off the top is at least somewhat forgivable, right? But the fact that it only doubles the ETB is like the fact that it doubles only the ETB is a little bit tougher. It is good for combos, right? Like it makes Emil and Deadeye way better, but the passive grind that you get from playing Delny, where you're just double untapping everything for combat, is not there.
Right.
In that in particular, I think it's, as I mentioned, like way better for the landfall decks that exist out there. And I think honestly, there's probably going to be more now because they become a lot more playable with this card.
Yeah,
and it's a green sun fetchable target in green, which is crazy.
I just gotta say, all these people out there that are like that when they unbanned and we're like, man, I wish that they had unbanned Fastball. I just want them to give green about what the fuck do you need green to be better for? Green's so good right now, and it's getting better. Like I don't get it.
I don't know. I think any conversation around bans and unbans is usually very unproductive if we're looking at what outliers say.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the thing. Like, I feel like green is starting to cement itself as like one of the best colors again.
I mean,
cEDH.
Two of the best decks in the format are green, right? Like it is very arguable that like Blue Farm, Rog, Thras, and Kinnan are the three most consistent decks in the format, and you might notice the common theme of two of those Simic decks.
Yeah. I just like it is interesting to see how like we have kind of considered green to not be very good for a while, but like I think green is incredibly well positioned right now and is getting really good additions.
On the hot take scale, I give you an ice cube.
Here is your Titan Moon scale. This is what it is, right? It's that cold. The Moon Titan, it's pretty cold. That's how cold.
We could have just stuck with ice cube though. You were like, no, something colder and more obscure. There's like, you could have said fucking Antarctica. Like, you're like, actually, the temperatures on the moons of Titan are actually pretty cold. And I get that appeals to our audience, but fuck, come on. All the people in the audience, they were like, I can't believe you didn't understand Titan's temperatures, Ian. What a Neanderthal.
It's almost as cold as Pluto.
Fuck. Did you know that if a rover went on Titan, it would freeze before it hits the surface of the...
I'm sorry, I need a timeout. Now, this is a card that I know Jeremy is working on, if I am correct. Y'shtola.
You
know what I'm referencing, right?
Is it the temperature of Titan's moons?
It's where they yodel.
Where Ricola, as I also made a reference to it.
Well, that's what I thought you were doing, but then you looked at me weird, so I was like, all right, well.
Got to keep you on your toes.
Ishtola, Knights Blessed, is a 2/4 cat warlock that costs a generic and Esper, has vigilance, and says at the beginning of each end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, you draw a card. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, Ishtola deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. Whew. God, I really was fighting that yawn just then. I'm so sorry, everybody. Ever like you're in the middle of talking and then your body is just like, no, you're gonna fucking yawn. This card is very cool. What are your thoughts on it? Like, how does this feel? Because like Esper right now feels like it is kind of dominated by at least 2 decks. I feel like 1 for sure. Like, how does this fit into the format, especially with like the way Esper has been getting played lately?
Ishota is Ishtola is very interesting because like it's a commander that it's another curiosity commander, which seems to be like the common theme in this set. And I think that folks might not realize that at first because I think they're used to seeing lose life in Esper. But yeah, it says
Right.
you definitely deal damage to your opponents, which is pretty sweet. The card advantage on the commander is not bad, right? It's actually not the hardest to get it to proc at the end step, right? Even just casting a snuff out of your own is a way that you can trigger this
Right.
commander at an end step in which you might not be drawing cards from it. So it's definitely a commander that you have to build around. It's truly disgusting with the Sheoldred. It's like that is the one deck that I will allow Sheoldred in is this deck because it makes you want to barf. It's so gross. Like it's really really insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Ishtola it's a very solid card advantage engine, as I mentioned. Like it's definitely one of those cards that like you have to invest into the commander for, right? So it's a
Right.
little bit harder for that aspect, but I think it's definitely a very interesting strategy. What's nice about it is that it like rewards you for playing a bunch of free interaction, right? Which is,
Right.
I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, no, I think this is like really cool. I think like the stuff that you can do with Shieldred and this is obviously like sick. I got like I look at this and I think a little bit of why am I blinking so hard on card names today? The blue black merfolk from that like draws cards on end step if people had lost.
Sig River Cutthroat.
Yeah, like it reminds me of Sig. And so like when I look at this, I'm like, it is very obviously better than that. I think my biggest
I don't think they're like even comparable. Like
well, okay, the reason I think about them in the similar vein is at the beginning of each end step, if a player lost 4 or more life, you draw a card. Like that is a very similar effect. Like
right.
they
I'm
both do
referring
very
to the second half of the thought there, which
yeah,
is like,
no. And I was getting there, right? Like the second half of that like is very good. Um I'm curious how sustainable of a play pattern it is, right? Because it's going to take a lot of resources to get this out, and then like your free interaction sure is like good, but like that is a limited resource. Your free interaction. So I guess my concern with it is like how
creatures that cost 3. I will argue.
no, there are, but like how consistently are you going to be able to get this going? I guess is my like concern with it. To get the second half of it like really moving.
Sure.
And like and again, this is not me being like this is bad. This is me just like out loud thinking like how consistent can this work? Because like the MV3 or greater, like that's not prohibitive. Like you certainly are going to be able to get that going, but it's like at what clip are you going to be able to get that going is my question.
Sure.
And like that is something that I think will be interesting to see how that plays out because I think that's going to be the like barrier to this deck's success.
Yeah. I mean, getting the commander on the field is, as I mentioned, it's very commander dependent strategy. I think that is going to be the choke point for the deck for sure.
Yeah, hot takes over here today. So Celes Rune Knight is again cost a generic and a Mardu is a 4/4. that says when it enters, discard any number of cards, then draw that many +1. Whenever one or more other creatures you control enter, if one or more of them entered from a graveyard or was cast from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Huh. Well, that's an interesting ability.
Yeah, this commander is kind of good, actually. Fun fact. I think it's extremely strong. It's probably the only reason to play Mardu in recent history. And yeah, you can print that one and take it to the bank. I have no problem saying that statement. I think Mardu's been truly abysmal since the Dockside ban.
Yeah,
And even then, it
I would
was
agree with
still
that.
pretty bad. So Celes is pretty real, right? So you have this like semi card advantage ability, right? Very, very positive relationship with twin flame effects, ephemerate effects, things like that. And luckily,
And
you
there's
want,
only so many of those though in Mardu, right? Like there's only a
yeah,
handful of
yeah,
those,
yeah.
right?
/S//S. Uh, yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff in Mardu that supports this pile, plus the fact
Right.
that this commander on its own is just an outlet for infinite persist combos, which is pretty cool.
Huh. Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, so any persist creature and a sack outlet like Goblin Bombardment just like wins, right?
huh.
So
Yeah.
it's one of the main reasons that gives Mardu life is like you have this like potentially faster. I think the Reanimator Celeste deck is better than the like Turbo Nas Celeste deck by a pretty considerable amount, right? But
Yeah,
like
that tracks.
the Broodlord Raza version probably maybe you don't even need Raza, but at least like Broodlord mid-rangey Reanimator plus then like if your fast plan doesn't work, you like stick your commander, cycle through a whole hand, and then like
Mhm.
you just have 2 card creature combos for the rest of the game, which is also very powerful. Yeah, like it's pretty good.
Shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have black to facilitate all of these too, which is like very, very strong, right?
Yeah. Getting the black tutors and the black like ramp, I think, is like a huge addition to that, right?
Yeah.
Um no, I think that's interesting. I did not immediately think about the persist part of that, but I think like
Hmm.
I mean, hell, like this in like the I forget the name of the goblin persist card, the black red one. Um I know cards, I just don't remember card names very well. Um
Are you talking about the black red one or the
yeah,
black
the
one?
black red one, the one that
The Murderous Red
deals
Cap.
yeah,
Yeah.
murderous red cap.
So what I found with the
Um
deck, funny enough, is that like you don't need Murderous Red Cap because that's the only persist creature that comes in and like does something right for
mhm,
damage wise. So it's actually gives you a higher redundancy to play the cheaper persist creatures and just play
okay.
outlets that kill people. You know, like Altar of Dementia, Goblin Bombardment, Blasting Station, etc.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
I'm
sense.
probably gonna do a deck tech on this deck, which is pretty sweet on the channel sometime soon. So look out for that. I think this card's really interesting. Can we talk about it?
I guess. So Emet-Selch Unsundered is a 2/4 elder wizard that costs a black and a blue, has vigilance, and says when it enters or attacks, more of that Titan templating, then discard a card. Draw a card, then discard a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 14 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform it. And then you flip it over. Where's the transform button? Hades, Sorcerer of Eld. It is an avatar that is a 6/6 with vigilance. And during your turn, you may play cards from your graveyard. If a card or token would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. This is an interesting little card here. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think this one's interesting because I think it looks better than it is, unfortunately. And the fact that like it's really strong. It's an infinite discard outlet, right? Which is definitely
Sure.
not bad. So you can like rummage through or loot through your entire library. The problem
Mhm.
is it's the fact that it doesn't flip until you have 14 or more cards, but on your upkeep,
Right.
which is tough, right? The fact that this is a Yawgmoth Will in the command zone, but that you need to basically like launch an extra turn for, which
Yeah.
sucks. Because it's really powerful, right? Like just turning over and having a Yawgmoth Will in the command zone turns out pretty good. Uh, but then the timing of it is just so awful, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
bad.
Like even if you play extra turn spells, they're just like expensive, right? Like even then, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. This is interesting. The one thing that I do think is upsetting about this, right, is it is a Yawgmoth's Will with an asterisk, because if you cast the spell from your hand, you can't get the second cast off of it. You know what I mean? Because it would get exiled when it resolves.
That's how Yawgmoth's Will do.
No, I understand, but like the point being is that like once it's flipped, whatever is in your graveyard is what you have, and because of the time, like I'm kind of like reinforcing what you're saying, right? Is because of the timing of it, you don't have that ability like with Yawgmoth's Will, where you can fire off when you want it to fire off.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's flipping over what's in your graveyard, tough shit.
I think the best play pattern that I'm predicting with it is the surprise kill of your opponents, where you're like, all right, cool, like, you know, playing mid range, your commander's on the field, right? And then like end step, brain freeze myself for like, you know, 20 something after a big counterspell fight, right? And then go to your turn and like do the thing, you know. I think that's probably going to be like the best play pattern. So like instant speed self mill is probably like the thing to look out for in the deck.
That just feels like so telegraphed. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of my biggest issue with that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, my L1 judge friend. So the trigger will go on the stack always, right? At the beginning of your upkeep.
Correct.
Okay, so like you can hypothetically like hold priority, do a bunch of stuff in response to that trigger.
Yeah, the trigger will go on the stack. So like you could do it at your upkeep.
Yeah.
The issue I feel like is you're doing that on your upkeep, so you're like kind of like taking your own mana away from yourself at that point.
Oh yeah, no, that part sucks, right?
So,
I'm saying you can.
I do agree with you though. I think this reads better than it is.
Yes. And I think there might be some fun combos that people figure out, but it's going to take some work, I think.
I mean, it's really just this part of it, right? Like it's at the beginning of your upkeep. Instead of if there are 14, you know, like checking if it was just this part, hey, that's great. But because of this, yeah, that's rough. Interesting.
This one's a lot better in my opinion.
This one, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the commander deck variant of Emet-Selch of the third seed. It is a 3/4 Elder Wizard that costs 2 generic, a blue and a black, and says spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast. Whenever one or more opponents lose life, you may cast target instant sorcery card from your graveyard. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Do this only once each turn. I don't know what it is about today, but every time I read the second set of like text on a card, I immediately need to yawn.
Yep.
I don't know why, but it's once I get to that second part, my brain's like, it's yawning time.
Hell yeah.
So this is better, in your opinion, than the other ones, correct? Than the other Emet.
Yeah, so yeah, by far. I mean, like the fact that you can play a Yawgmoth's Well with this commander, and then like all of your rocks are like 0, basically, right?
All our rocks are free.
Yeah, exactly. And then like, yeah, a bunch of you can storm with this guy so efficiently, right? Basically, it's like the best Yawgmoth's Will commander, I think, at that point, right?
Yeah.
The only problem is like setting it up, and then also like the grind modes on it is not bad, right? You basically get this like repeatable Snapcaster ability, right, where you can just worst case scenario chunk your opponents a little bit, but then you get to play cards like Bowmasters and stuff like that, which then can like it's really interesting because then suddenly like for counterspell fights you can turn into weird scenarios where like someone does something and then you can be like, all right, if you draw off your Ristic, I'll ping that person in the face, which will trigger my commander, which means I can get this counterspell back from my graveyard and then fight on the stack, which I think is like it's all pretty neat, you know?
Yeah, that's like an interesting. I think that is an interesting like political landscape to navigate.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, I think it would take a skilled political player to play that effectively. Because I think like most players might struggle with that those scenarios, just because of like, I think there are a lot of people who would be like, I don't want you to have that. And you know what I mean?
Sure. I don't think it's like, I don't know if it's that deep, but I hear you.
Well, it's the average player, in my opinion, is subpar at politics.
Sure.
Not saying that I am not in that group, but it definitely is a thing where I feel like to play this optimally, I feel like you would have to be like very good at politics, in my opinion.
Sure. So I got it. Yeah.
All right. That's what I got. So Ultima, Origin of Oblivion.
Bitch, I am Ultima.
What?
Ultimate, the song. Bitch, I am ultimate. I am the one. I don't need guns to earn my respect. That one, it was like a meme song for like 3 years. No.
I think we've established you and I are on different sides of the internet at this point. Like, I don't think we need more.
All right. Now this might be, you've interrupted this podcast enough to show me weird shit.
You've commandeered your podcast too many times. It's my turn now, bitch. I feel like I've probably heard this at some point.
It was just like, it was used on like TikTok and Vine like a bunch. Like
I've probably heard it in like just it. I imagine it sounds familiar, but it doesn't sound like something where I'm like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's probably something I have absolutely seen. And my brain was just like, Yep, that is a hip hop song that is used in a TikTok.
Sure. I got you.
I am the one.
Yeah, exactly. See, it's when you say Ultima, I'm like, whoop.
Ultima, Origin of Oblivion. This is a 4/4 god that has flying, costs 5 generic mana, and says whenever Ultima attacks, put a blight counter on target land. For as long as that land has a blight counter on it, it loses all land types and abilities and has tap, add, colorless. Whenever you tap a land for colorless, add an additional colorless. So I gotta be honest, I've got Oblivion on the brain, but the game Oblivion, not the
sure.
Like that's when I read this, I'm like, I see Origin of Oblivion, and I'm like, what does that have to do with Oblivion? Oh, this is a different game series. Okay.
I think it's a cool colorless commander. I think the fact that you can like ETB shut down a guy's Cradle is like kind of cool, but like the biggest part is whenever you tap a land for colorless mana, add another colorless is like cool, right? Like I think that's just a very explosive colorless commander, and like,
is it time to do Tron and CEDH, fam?
All those Juladoc players are screaming from the rooftops.
No, I think this is interesting. I remember getting a message about this, and it was just like, is this a Golos replacement? And I'm like, probably not.
Yeah.
You can't crop rot a tropical island into a workshop in this deck. That's
not with that attitude.
Rip Golos. No, this is cool.
Yeah. That's it. We don't gotta go too deep on it. It's double mana. Very good. Wow.
Yeah.
We got a lot of cards to get through.
I will say, Buster Sword, I do like this. I think that, I had multiple people message me about this because specifically, like, I believe Arden Vial was a lot of the reason people were like messaging me about this, because it does like cast your ad nauseum for free. Which I think is like fine. I think
the idea is you're supposed to like stick and abolish your main phase 1, connect in with this main phase 2 or during combat and then win, right? Is it like the plan?
That is see, this is the thing, is because I don't know that this works with Arden Vial the way that like people want it to right away, because like I think the idea with Arden Vial is you're mostly looking for the window to like get you're really looking for your equipment to be like the silence effects more than anything.
Right.
And so you
know where I'm at too. Yeah.
Like I think it's interesting. I think this is cool. I would be interested to see how this would do in like Arden Tana. honestly. Like, I think this is more interesting in a deck like that because you have like more utility instant sorceries to cast.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just spells. So like I think like any like Arden Crom I think could utilize this well. And then like Ardentana is the other one I think like benefits the most out of this. I don't know that Arden Vial would want this though. But I think that's it. I definitely, this set has me thinking about Arden a lot more because this deck, the set was just like,
very
here's a bunch of equipment stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Terra, yay.
Hey, there it is. So this is not a red-green commander.
But Cal.
Well, we'll get there. Terra, Magical Adept. This is a 4/2 human wizard warrior. That costs a generic, a green, and a red. And it says when Terra enters, mill 5 cards, put up to 1 enchantment card milled this way into your hand. And then it has an activated ability. It costs 4 generic, a red, and a green. You tap it and exile Terra and return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery. And the backside of it is one of the legendary enchantment creature sagas. This is a thing now. Where your first 3 chapters, you create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary enchantment you control. It gains haste. If it's a saga, put up to 3 lore counters on it and sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. And then chapter 4 is you add 2 white, 2 blue, 2 black, 2 red, and 2 green, and you exile Terra and return it to the battlefield front face up, and it also has flying. So that's cool. So you and Jeremy and like you guys saw this and immediately were like, this is cool. Like, what are the feelings on this for you?
So I think Esper Terra is just the best 5-color turbo commander we've ever gotten, right? And by that I mean like you really only care about the front half, the ETB, mill 5, etc., right? Like that's basically it. I've messed around with the deck a little bit, especially post 5-color SpongeBob run, right? I thought I would mess around with Terra. And Terra is just like a better commander because it can come down and actually make an impact on the game.
It does stuff that's actually relevant.
Yeah. Like occasionally it'll grab you one of your enchantments. Realistically, if you're playing it as a turbo commander, it's probably not grabbing you that many enchantments. Right. It's also a food chain outlet. It's a bad food chain outlet, but it's a food chain outlet, right? So that's the weird part. Is like,
sure.
You have to mill your entire library before you can even go to assemble the win, which is like sketchy because, you know, you have to make sure to basically like exile your Esper Sentinel or your Archivist or like your Fairy Mastermind before you go to execute the loop fully, which I don't think is egregious. And so like the only downside of the food chain lines in the deck is that you have to play like a couple bad cards. And I think you can get away with maybe playing only one. Some people are just messing around with like Gloom Shrieker, which like ETB enchantment creature brings back your Thassa's Oracle. You win for not having a library, or there's some backup lines too. Like I like the Enduring Courage line because if you play Enduring Courage, this is one where I actually uses the backside of the commander, which I think is pretty fun. So if you make 5 colors of mana, and this is one I actually discovered when I was working with a client, you get an Enduring Courage and you play it, which gives all your things +2/+0 and haste, right? But then you can then play your Terra, and then oh no, you can't do this. You have to have the Enduring Courage and Enduring Vitality combo, right? Which makes it worse. But if you have Enduring Courage and Enduring Vitality, you can pick up all your enchantments, and then you can like go through a breach line, right? But also if for some reason like you lose your Thassa's Oracle, or you lose one of your other win conditions, what you can actually do is if you have Enduring Courage and Enduring Vitality, because all of your creatures, when they come in, will be able to tap for mana, right? So when you cast Squee over and over again, it can actually tap for mana that isn't food chain relegated, right? So that's how you play Breach. But if, once again, for example, if you lose your Oracle, as it were, right, you can actually play and flip Terra infinitely and then exile her to food chain, which makes infinite copies of the hasty enchantment creatures, which is fun.
Huh. That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is neat. That is a cool like way to like make that happen.
Yeah.
I think this is neat. I definitely think that there is a version of the SpongeBob deck you played that basically just plays this, and that is the strict upgrade.
Yeah.
And it's just immediately better. I don't know how deep you need to go on some of these backup lines, is my thought on it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the just playing Squee and Food Chain is so fucking not that much of a I think adding that doesn't dilute the deck enough, if that makes sense, because you don't need more than that to get that rolling, because really all you need is just mill until you hit breach. And then
You don't though. That's the problem, right? Because you can't cast breach with the food chain mana.
Well, okay. I guess in my brain, I am assuming I have untapped mana.
Well,
I can have 2 mana that's not.
I think that is a very real cost. Is my issue, right?
That's fair.
Food chain is way worse if you have to have 2 mana afterwards. It is significantly worse in that light, right?
Yeah, that's super fair. I don't know. I think that what was that card that you were talking about that enters and returns Thassa's Oracle? What were you talking about?
Gloom Shrieker?
Gloom Shrieker.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
I was like, I don't know what this card is. Okay, so when it enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard to hand. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I don't... Yeah, I think this deck has the ability to be very good, right?
Sure.
I think it'll be interesting to see how deep people go into some of these things, because I don't know.
The other one people are thinking about is just playing Perforos, right? Which is easier, I think.
Yeah, Perforos does just kind of win, doesn't it?
I think that's my preference of the Gloom Shrieker versus Perforos thing. But Gloom Shrieker is definitely a higher card quality. Perforos just covers for more things going wrong.
Yeah, Perforos is just a straight win con that doesn't have much utility outside of that.
Yeah, and 1/4 drop in the deck is not bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is an interesting card. I think this is cool. I also think that there's the saga creature is an interesting concept. What?
Did you not see that? I went to put my drink down and it bounced off my microphone and whacked me.
Oh my god! I can't wait to go back and edit this so I can watch this. I was looking at the card. I did not see
it. Also smacked the mic, so it was not quiet. You know what I mean?
I heard something, but I just figured it was just oh, you took a big swig and it was louder than normal.
Mm-hmm.
You just beefed it over there, huh?
Yep.
Proud of you.
I was surprised you didn't bring up Cloud yet.
I haven't seen it on the list, or we haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about Cloud because I have thoughts. Oh boy, this card, I tell you what, I have gotten first of all, I just gotta say, I don't know how I get this printing of the card, but if I can, I know it's going for $600 right now, but
that one,
that's what it says here.
Oof.
Yeah, I know. This is the printing I want. This is my favorite printing. But this card genuinely, I think, might be one of the best Arden cards ever printed, and might just be one of the best straightforward equipment cards ever printed. So for those who are unfamiliar, Cloud Midgar Mercenary is a 2/1 human soldier mercenary that says when it enters, search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. It's a Stoneforge Mystic, not a big deal. The second part of it, though, is as long as Cloud is equipped, if an ability of Cloud or an equipment attached to it triggers, that ability triggers an additional time, which is really, really strong. So there's right off the bat, right? Let's just get the elephant out of the room, right? Jitte in this card is really, really good. Double GT charge counters fucking rock, right? The other thing about it that I think is really neat, I know I've talked about this card on the on the podcast before, but pre-war formalware is really hot with this card because if you return Cloud with pre-war formalware, you do get a second search trigger, which is really neat because Cloud would be equipped when it enters. So like that is very strong. I'm still figuring out all the lines that you can do with this, but I mean, double tutors are usually pretty good. Um, what are your thoughts about Cloud, generally speaking?
I mean, I this is the equipment area. That is all you. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's extremely powerful, right? It's a Stoneforge effect that then gets to like the thing is you never have to ask, oh well, what happens if I don't get the things that work well with Cloud, because they do. You go grab them right out of your deck.
Right.
So obviously it's very very powerful. It does a lot of really cool stuff. It's just a really efficient and powerful rate for 2 mana. So if your deck cares about equipment whatsoever in the higher parts of cEDH, this is one to play.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this card. Like this set in general has me like actually thinking about Arden a lot more. I need to like sit and like play around with stuff a little bit more, which I have not been doing because I've been like playing Crusader Kings or Jedi Survivor. But like I think it's really exciting. I think that like the stuff that you can do with Cloud is like just like this interaction alone. I think is like very interesting and exciting. And it was like, okay, so there's like more things that can be done with this and like trying to figure out all the things that you can take advantage with this. I think is going to be fun.
Absolutely.
So, Garland.
Why, yes, it is the commander from the only Final Fantasy game I have played as of time of recording.
Garland, Knight of Cornelia, is a 3/2 human knight that costs a black and red. Says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, surveil 1. And then for 3 generic, 2 black and 2 red, you can activate an ability that says return this from your graveyard to the battlefield transformed. The backside of it is Chaos the Endless. This is a 5/5 demon with flying that says when Chaos dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. So I'm assuming you are concerned about the front half of this card.
Nah, 2 mana 5/5, that's broken. For 7 also.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like the 9 mana 5/5.
Shut up. No, I mean Garland's pretty sick, right? Like it's the reason I like it is because it is a very cheap Rakdos commander that really enables.
Welcome to the mispronunciation crew. I'm not the only one doing it today.
What do we do when we fall, Master Bruce? We enable.
What we do when we fall, Master Bruce? What the fuck?
Oh man, yeah. So Michael Caine plays Garland and not Chameleon.
Oh, that's delightful. Oh, that's funny.
Anyways, so yeah, Garland. I think it's the best Rakdos Bola Citadel commander ever, which is pretty sick, right? Like it's having a Dragon Rage Channeler in the command zone is actually pretty gas, right? Like, and the fact that you have consistent access to that type of thing is pretty sweet. You get to play like probably like 24 lands in your deck and then just rip a bunch of stuff with Bola Citadel on top of your library. So yeah, that is what I want to do with this card. It's insane. It's a great turbo commander. All about it. Yeah.
I want to get a altar of this card that just has Darius Garland on it. Go Cavs.
They do share a name.
They do share a name. Darius Garland fucking rocks. I had to talk about sports somehow.
Okay. Yeah, no, you got it in there. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Listen, I'm wearing my Cincinnati Reds City Connect hat today. So I got this at the Reds game the other day. Kefka, Court Mage. Holy shit, this artwork.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Every single Kefka art's insane.
That is insane. That looks like something from like JoJo's.
That's kind of Kefka's vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Kefka Court Mage is a 4/5 human wizard that costs 2 generic and Grixis. It says whenever Kefka enters or attacks, each player discards a card. Then you draw a card for each card type among cards discarded this way. Then you has an activated ability that costs 8 generic. Each opponent sacrifices a permanent of their choice. Transform Kefka. You can activate only as a sorcery. When you transform it, it transforms into Kefka, Ruler of Ruin. It is a 5/7 avatar wizard that has flying, and whenever an opponent loses a life during your turn, you draw that many cards. So this is pretty. It's got that Titan text on it. We love to see an enters or attacks trigger. What are your thoughts on this?
I am like really trying not to be hyperbolic, but I legitimately think that like Kefka is really comparable to Blue Farm. I'm not gonna lie.
Really? Okay.
I legitimately think so. Yeah. So Kefka on its own, obviously, you get the Grixis shell, right? So you can play Turbo with Kefka at the helm. There is some incentive to potentially look at Kefka as a card for like infinite bouncing, right? Because you can like Hullbreaker Kefka,
Right.
and then shred everyone's hand, and then you as long as you have a card in hand, which will always be the case, right? You're able to then rummage through your entire library, right? That is perhaps the most tame thing about Kefka. I think this Titan text is, after seeing it in play, it's crazy, right? Because what you don't think about is the fact that, like, on average, worst case scenario, you're drawing 2 cards off of the ETB or attack trigger, right? Because what's going to happen is, and this is what like I was trying to metagame when we played against it, and we were playing against it in cEDH, was like, you would go like, all right, cool, let's all compare card types so that we don't pitch the wrong one, right? And then the Kefka pilot will still then go to discard a card that is not the card type that you're thinking, because you've had to verbalize not giving them 4 cards, right? And it's the fact that like what Blue Farm gains in silence effects, Kefka gains in the fact that you are constantly removing cards from your opponent's hands,
Right.
which then reduces the amount of potential interaction they might have for your actual win attempt.
Yeah. No, I think this is interesting as just like, even just as like a mid-range deck, right? Because of the fact that you like it I know it's not in Jund, right? But this feels very classic Jund to me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like in how it works. Because like the whole idea with like Jund in Modern, right, is you're basically shredding hands and then being like, my top decks are better than yours. Well, obviously you can't do that in cEDH. You're just kind of losing due to the mass number of opponents. But instead what you get is you're shredding people's hands and then drawing cards off of that. So you're getting advantage. Like this seems really cool in that regard. It kind of reminds me of the Flip Bolus a little bit, but it feels better.
Just infinitely better.
Just significantly better. The other thing that I think is neat about that, I mean, just Jesus Christ, dude, Titan text plating, I think, first of all, I love it because it's like always hot.
It's good for our format. Yeah.
It is good for our format, but like it's always strong. I've never seen it be bad. And so like, I think that is really exciting. And I think like as a commander, it makes it it's more interesting to play because you don't need to invest in all of these like bounce effects. You can just play the classic ones. You know what I mean? I almost wonder if you could play like a Tivit strategy almost in like the way that like Tivit plays like a control-y game plan and then just like plays it out and then just like attacks with it and then just have like good cards backing you up. You know what I mean?
Sure. I think that would be a worse version of the deck, but I do think it's very feasible.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like thinking of like ways you could play this because like I don't look at this and immediately think Turbo is the way.
Well, that's why I said Blue Farm, right?
Sure.
Like we're trying to be a deck that is like you are trying to actively do generic Grixis stuff, right? Whether that be going fast or having the pivot to be able to go fast while maybe not necessarily doing so, right? And then having this commander in the command zone that is just going to be pure value when it sticks, right? Like it is nothing but that, right? And I think that's extremely powerful. I don't think you ever really need to flip it over. You can, and I think it would be a lot of value, but I think that the front side is extremely powerful without it, you know?
Yeah, the backside seems aggressively fine.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's very good, but like I think the front side, you're gonna get more mileage out of the front side.
I agree. And it also has like fantastic application with like, and this might be where you find a little bit of your mid range spice with the card, right? Like I think that there's a really interesting version that's playing like the dual caster stuff too, right? Because you can either like ghostly flicker your opponents, shred their hands, and then like rummage through your deck, right? But you can also do it with saw in half too, right? Like there's a lot of really interesting stuff there.
Right. No, this is super interesting. This set, like, okay, as somebody who is not like a huge Final Fantasy person, right? Like I'm very excited about the set. Like this set looks really cool. You know, obviously we aren't going over the whole set today. We still have plenty of stuff that we're going to want to talk about during our set review, but like overall, what are your thoughts on like what are you expecting to see out of the format post the set?
Yeah. I mean, you know me, every time a set comes in and expands what is playable in the format without being oppressive, it immediately is an A+ for me, right? And I think this set does that with multiple decks. I think some people were a little scared of Vivi / are a little scared of Vivi being too good. But I think Kefka Vivi are like exactly the kind of power level we want in cEDH, where it's like they can contend with the best decks without being the best decks, right? I think the only problem with Vivi is going to be people who are playing Storm poorly. But that's always going to be the problem with Storm decks. Is like it's not necessarily Storm deck pilots; it's bad Storm deck pilots, right?
Yeah. Well, and like the other thing with Vivi too is I think this is something that like blue red will always have to contend with. Is it's just like blue red has a very very hard ceiling on how good it can be. And so like I feel like even if it's like super strong and like what you're able to actually apply with what it does, I still think it's going to struggle to like get up to the levels of like a Rogsai or a Kinnan or a Rogthras, or you know what I mean? Like I think like it will have like a very very finite ceiling on it, on like how good it can get, and that's just because I think like blue red, I mean, it like the lack of tutors that you get in blue red, I think will always hold blue red decks back.
I definitely agree. I think the past few months have also sort of corrected that notion a little bit, right? Like, I mean, we have people like Blake running around who has won 2 tournaments and top 4 in another within the past month with Ral, right? So like, I mean, there's only so many times
Ral definitely seems like a force right now.
Right. And so like I think there's only so many times that like the weighted argument of like, well, it's not X amount of colors in the deck, because like I think that there's real, like, as someone who's been messing around with a lot of 5 color and a lot of lower color decks lately, like there are very real costs to playing more colors. And I see it in blue farm pilots all the time. Like this is why like in our group chat, Jeremy and I were having an argument about like defense grid in SpongeBob, where I was like, no, you have to play the colorless enabler, right? Because you can't afford to play multiple pips of colors all the time, right? Like it's just it contradicts the I'm trying to move fast plan.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's like one of the things where I just think like blue red, like I think what Ral does really well is I don't think Ral needs to like tutor up specific things to make it go.
Yeah.
Ral very much feels like you stick the commander and then it just kind of does its thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like Vivi, I feel like you need to have like a specific couple of cards in order to make it start turning. And I think that will be what I think holds it back. But overall, I still think it's going to be extremely strong and very good.
Yes.
I don't want people to listen to this and me being like, VV's bad and not good. That's not what I'm saying.
I can't believe you said that.
I know, right? I know. I just think people should only play Tivit, is what I think. And I think Tivit is the best deck in the format and the only deck in the format.
They finally admit it.
I know. I finally said it. I saw somebody comment on our last video that was like, take a shot every time Cal says Tivit. And I was like, honestly, that's a challenge to me, because if you're going to play that game, let's fucking go.
Well, if they're playing in this episode, they are certainly intoxicated.
I've actually only said it like, I think like 4 times this episode.
Oh my lord. All right. Hey, editor Cal, Tivit count.
Okay. Hold on.
I guarantee you.
Tivit. There you go. Have a great evening.
You know you're the same person, right? You did that to you.
Yeah, I know. It's fine.
Okay, cool. I just want to check in.
This is a problem for future me.
Yeah.
To
be clear, the past you explicitly went out of your way to create.
Future me is a different person. It is not me right now. Me right now, this isn't a problem for me. This is a problem for me in the future, and that's a different person. I don't have to deal with it. Ian, if people would like to get some coaching and help brewing some of these sick ass Final Fantasy commanders, how could they get a hold of you to do that? I don't know why.
Yeah, if you're interested in brewing Final Fantasy, which is very clearly proving to be a cEDH friendly set, you can find me over at comedianmtg@gmail.com. You can find me in any places in the link tree that Cal is nice enough to leave down below. You can go over to my channel. Many places to find me and all that stuff. Been doing a lot of good stuff lately. I was able to do really well last weekend. Had a bunch of clients who also were doing well last weekend. One of them texted me they won their first tournament after we met together.
Oh, yeah.
Sick. Yeah, a lot of really cool stuff. So a lot of big tournaments coming down the pipeline. So if you're interested in that or brewing any of these extremely powerful Final Fantasy commanders, feel free to hit me up in any of those places.
If you want to support the show, you could go to patreon.com/the Mind Sculptors and help us out over there. If you just enjoy the show and you have not yet subscribed, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, and you will never miss an episode. And I'm trying to think of you're going to be at Vegas. When is Vegas?
The second weekend fully in June, so like the 14th.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
so Vegas is coming up.
After that. My bad. This is the weekend after that. Yeah.
Yes. If you're going to Vegas, check out Ian. Ian will be at Vegas at MagicCon.
Oh yeah.
I believe we're both going to be at Atlanta.
Yep.
So that will be the next place where you can catch both of us at, as far as I'm aware, unless we do something before then. If we do, we will let you know. With that being said, I'm Cal.
I'm Ian.
Stay sculpty, everybody.